Joining us now, a man who just finished his first draft as the new general manager of the Baltimore Ravens, although he's worked with the Ravens since they became the Ravens back in 1996. He is Ravens GM Eric DeCosta. Eric, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I don't understand this. This is an age where people don't stay in one job for very long, especially in the NFL, where there is a constant rotation and movement and trying to get a promotion and just trying to hold on to the job you have. How do you manage to stay 23 years with the same team?
My wife. My wife, Mike. She's from the area. She loves Baltimore. We've got family here. She's got her whole family, her mom, her sisters, her cousins. My children go to school here, and Baltimore's become my second home. I grew up in Boston, but Baltimore, I like the proximity to major cities, and it's just become a place that we like.
But that's just half the equation. The other half of it is doing the job well enough that you can stay there for 23 years. And I know you're going to have a certain level of humility here, but you've clearly done a great job, or you wouldn't have been permitted to continue to work for the Ravens all these years in a competitive industry. That is a rarity that someone can make it 23 years without at some point someone saying, yeah, it's time for a change.
Well, we've been fortunate. Continuity is a big word in this organization. It started with Mr. Modell, and it continued with Steve Bisciotti. And we're an organization. We've been around 24 years. We've only had 3 head coaches, and now we've had 2 general managers, and it just works. I've come to work every day. I see the same faces. I've worked with most of these people in this organization. I'm not unique. We've all worked together for 24 years. Our video staff, our training staff, PR, operations. A lot of us have been here now 24 years, and that's a great feeling, just being together, familiarity, and just being on the same page.
Yeah, and it sounds easy when you think about it, but so many teams out there give into that temptation for the quick fix, and they end up making things worse. And maybe half the battle is ensuring that there is continuity, because year in and year out, you deepen the relationships and people understand each other. And a lot of things that maybe trip up teams where they're trying to get used to new personalities, that's just something you really have to deal with.
Well, I think that's a great point. And as we studied years ago, as we began to look at really successful organizations, the one thing that we noticed that sort of all these organizations shared is staying together, building something from the bottom, building a culture. It's very hard to build a culture when you blow things up every single year. And that was something that was appealing to Mr. Modell and also Steve Bisciotti, and fortunately we've all benefited from that.
Well, what's harder for you, hearing it from your Boston people that you work for the Ravens, or hearing it from Baltimore people that you're from Boston?
Oh, man, I'd say the second. My Boston family, they understand that I'm doing this as a job. But the Baltimore fans sometimes have a tough time handling my allegiances to some of the Boston sports teams, especially the Red Sox and the Celtics and the Bruins. And so I have to be really careful, especially when I go to Orioles games, that I'm not wearing anything that might get me in trouble.
Over the years, your name came up from time to time as a guy who was under consideration for GM jobs elsewhere. And I think at one point we all realized this guy's staying put and he's going to become the GM of the Ravens at some point. But how close did you ever come? Was there a time where and you don't have to say when or where, but was there a time where you thought, you know what, this is the time where I'm going to go somewhere else so I can be my own guy and run my own team?
Well, I think there are a couple of times where you start to wander a little bit and think about it, and the opportunity may be really attractive. And you look at ownership, you look at the fan base, you look at the organization in general, you look at the players that they have on the team, salary cap situation. Everything kind of looks good. And so what I would do is basically sleep on it, think about it, and wake up the next day and realize that I was crazy and that the best opportunity for me was right in front of my face. And that, the most enjoyment that I get is when the Baltimore Ravens win football games. And so for me, I would think about it. I would flirt in my own mind a little bit. I would consider it. But quite honestly, Mike, going back to 2007, that was the first indication that I had that I would be the GM in Baltimore. And once Steve Bisciotti and I had that conversation, and we realized that it was a good fit for him and also for me, there was really no turning back.
And, it's been such a gradual transition. I have written down here to ask you what's the biggest difference between your job now as the GM and what it was as assistant GM. But I feel like it probably is no change because it's been such a long time coming and it's been such a gradual process that it's just a matter of dropping the assistant from the title.
Well, there's been a little bit of a transition. I think that, fortunately I've been blessed. Ozzie has such a humility about him and such a spirit that he has basically taken me and taught me so many different things. And I've had the opportunity over the last 5 years to really learn the job, which a lot of my contemporaries, they don't have that luxury to actually learn the job before they get the job. They get the job and then have to learn the job. So in my situation, the biggest change has probably been I don't have as much time to watch tape anymore because people are coming into my office quite a bit with different situations and questions, and they need help and guidance and various things. So my day is now broken up into many more segments than when I was the assistant GM or the director of player personnel or the college scouting director, and I could sit behind my desk and watch tape for 7 hours. So I've had to be more creative with my time and find ways to do my evaluations, knowing that my days are going to be, something far between.
And if you don't have as much time to watch tape, that means you have to trust other people's evaluations. Is that a difficult thing to do?
Well, I think if you've ever really run a draft for years like I have, your comfort level is quite honestly being in charge of the draft. And that's a blessing, but also a curse in some respects. So fortunately, we've got some really, really talented people that work with me, Joe Ortiz, George Kokinis, Pat Moriarty, Vince Newsom, guys like that I know I can count on to get the majority of the work done. What I try to do is be a good listener and trust the scouts and the people and the coaching staff, and that we work together to make the best decisions.
Gets back to what we were talking about earlier, too. With continuity, it's easier to trust the people you know because on top of taking on a new job, you don't have to worry about some new person whose work you don't know that all of a sudden you have to blindly trust.
And that's a great point. And so as I've joked in the past, if I go downstairs and say the lunch is a 6-7 lunch, everybody that I work with knows it's a great lunch. So they're all going to run downstairs and get the food because we speak the same language. We know the grading scale. We've been together for years and years and years. There's no guesswork. There's very little training involved. We just really work together.
Well, what's a 6-7 lunch mean? If it's on a scale of 10, that doesn't sound like a great lunch.
But we're not on a scale of 10, Mike. We're on a scale of 8, and that's a first-year starter. That's a first-year starter lunch. That's a lunch that's going to come in right away, and you're going to want that lunch. People are going to get in line for that lunch.
Yeah, you want that lunch to come in right away. You don't want that lunch to go out right away. That's for damn sure. Yeah. All right, you traded down this year before you got receiver Marquise Brown at 25, the deal with the Eagles. And surely you wanted Marquise Brown before you traded down. You thought you could trade down and still get him. I think you've said that in the aftermath of round one. What's that 2 picks like while you're waiting and waiting for someone to jump you or one of the teams in front of you to take the guy you want?
Well, I did have a little bit of apprehension about the Eagles coming up just because Marquise Brown seemed like an Eagles type of player and that we had heard his name connected to them a little bit. So that was probably the pressure point for me. The Texans, we felt, were probably going to take an offensive lineman, which they did. So I felt like once Marquise got past Philly at 22, we'd have a chance to get him. But it is a scary feeling. We had another player that we really liked as well. So as long as you look at your list, you see how many spots you are away, and you have that many players that you would be interested in drafting, you're okay. He was at the top for us. The attraction of getting a 4th-round pick and a 6th-round pick made a lot of sense for us where we were as a team and roster-wise. So it was an easy trade to make, but it makes it even better. And listen, sometimes we've made trades in the past. We've gone back. We make a lot of trades, and we've lost out on the guy that we wanted. So it does happen, but this year worked out really, really well for us.
Is the etiquette to not ask the team that's trading up into your spot who they're going to take? Because I remember a couple of years ago when the 49ers and the Bears flip-flopped, the 49ers didn't know who the Bears were taking at 2 when the 49ers went to 3, and the Bears may have taken their guy. Does it ever happen where there's we'll do this trade as long as we're clear that you're not taking our guy?
I've heard that before. I've heard teams ask that question. I think that we haven't done that. in the last however many years. We've just kind of winged it because I think my mindset is when you make a decision to trade, you're making an organizational decision and you're on board with that decision. All bets are off. I mean, it could be a situation where a team actually tells you that they're taking somebody and they're taking somebody else. We've had situations in the past where teams haven't always been honest with us in various situations. So, I haven't asked that question. I suppose I could have asked Howie Roseman that question. He might have given me the answer, but, he could have also been on the clock and traded. I mean, he might have gotten up 22 and somebody else comes along and says, hey, we want that pick. I mean, our phone was ringing. Multiple teams were calling us. So, I think once you make that decision to make the trade, once you make that decision to trade away from the pick, you're not in control anymore. You take the picks you're going to get and you move on.
What's the biggest challenge of drafting a guy like Marquise Brown, who had the foot injury, was able to do nothing pre-draft? You're relying on his tape. You can't do the apples-to-apples comparisons. What's the biggest challenge of feeling good about still making that pick in round one?
Probably that. I mean, you just basically answered your own question. I mean, the guy hasn't worked out. He hasn't run a 40. You've got to go strictly off the tape. You've got to go strictly off what people say about him. And fortunately, we've always based our evaluations of players on their tape first and foremost. So we loved his tape. We thought he was an explosive player, dynamic college football player whose skill set really did fit our team and what we're trying to be as an offense. And so there's always a little bit of apprehension anytime a guy doesn't work out. It seems like more and more nowadays players aren't working out quite as much. So we go back to the tape. We trust our people. We get multiple looks. We talk to people at the school, and we make our assessment.
The other receiver you drafted, this guy was the 30th pick in round 3, Miles Boykin. He ran a 4.42, a couple of fast receivers. How much of that speed desire is influenced by the change in quarterback, the type of offense you're running now, and just any other adjustment that's happened as you go from Joe Flacco to Lamar Jackson?
Well, I think Lamar factors in. We want to put weapons around him. His skill set being probably the fastest player on the field in most games, it makes it tougher for teams to basically all focus on him. He doesn't have quite the bullseye maybe on his chest if these guys end up being legitimate players. I think in general, Mike, we want to be the fastest team we can. Football's changed. Back in 2009, 2010, we used to play the Steelers, and those games were like, blood and guts, smash mouth football. And football's changed. It's changed a lot. We play these dynamic offenses. We play the Steelers twice a year. We play the Bengals with the speed that they have on offense. We play the Chiefs this year. We play the Saints this year. We've played the Rams. We scrimmaged against the Rams this past training camp, and I got a chance to see all their wonderful talent that they have. And football has become, in many ways, a track meet, and speed wins. It's very tough to defend. And we've sort of gotten into that game late, but we think time is right for us with Lamar to put some weapons around him, some fast guys around him to stress defenses.
See, that cuts against what everyone now believes about the Ravens offense. People are calling it a throwback. I'm looking at Lamar's passing numbers last year. He never threw more than 25 passes in any one game. Are you suggesting that those numbers are expected to go up this year?
Well, I think we've proven or we've shown that we have a power running attack. We've shown that we're able to run the football effectively. I think that over the last 7-8 games of the season last year, we led the league in rushing. But we're aware of that as well. We're aware of the fact that teams are now going to look at us as a run-first, run-primarily team. And we want to make it tougher for those defenses to put 8 or 9 guys in the box. So does that mean we're going to wing the ball down the field all the time? No, I don't think we'll do that. But now we've got a lot of different players that give us the chance to create mismatches in different ways. With a guy like Hollywood Brown, you've got a guy that can play in the backfield. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He can run reverses. You can run screens with him. He can go deep. With a guy like Miles Boykin, he's got the speed to go downfield and stretch the defense with his size and his skill set. We've got Willie Snead to play inside in the slot. We've got Chris Moore and some of these other younger guys that we've drafted that we feel really good about. We've got some really good tight ends, and Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, a first-round draft pick last year. These guys can go up and catch the ball and make plays as well. So now when you take those guys and you put them with our running backs, Mark Ingram, who we signed this year, Gus Edwards, Kenneth Dixon, Justice Hill, who we drafted. We feel like we've got a really intriguing set of playmakers to help Lamar move the ball effectively.
Let me flip it over to the defensive side of the ball. You had several guys leave via free agency. Eric Weddle was cut. You know, fans get nervous when they see these recognizable names leaving the team. What do you say to the folks who think the defense is going to take a step back because so many names people are familiar with aren't going to be there anymore?
Well, I mean, I understand their concern, and we're concerned about that as well. But we've been through this before. We've had multiple times over the last however many years, 20 years I'd say, where we've had these sort of purges where we've lost veteran players. It happened in 2002. It happened in 2007. It happened the year that we traded Haloti Ngata away. You know, so it happened when we lost Ray Lewis. We lost Ed Reed. It's happened many times in Baltimore. And the one constant is we've been able to rebuild the defense pretty quickly and stay strong. And so in looking at our defense, I think we've got a really, really wonderful secondary, a very talented secondary with some outstanding players. I love our defensive line up front. We got Michael Pierce and Brandon Williams, two guys that can really play the run and play stout in there. We've got some really good, I think, young, ascending linebackers, and Peanut Anwarsar and Kenny Young, who we drafted last year, and Matt Judon, who we think is one of the more intriguing outside linebackers in football with his skill set as a pass rusher and a young outside player who can make plays. So the cupboard's not bare. We had to make some really tough decisions, salary cap related. We knew the market would be irrational in one sense, and we saw Zadarius Smith and C.J. Mosley essentially get almost record-type deals at their positions. We decided to make a very, very tough decision with Eric Weddle, and we wanted to bring T-Sizzle back, and it didn't work out. He had a choice to make. He had another team in the game in Arizona, and he decided to go home and play for Arizona, and we wish him well, along with Eric, along with CJ and Zadarius. Those guys are all outstanding players who play great football for us. They made decisions. We respect those decisions, and we hope they really thrive.
You know, maybe more surprising than any of the departures, the decision to lock on to Earl Thomas. And it was one of those, Eric, my reaction was, you know what, this made sense all along. We should have seen this coming because it's like hand-in-glove type of a fit, Earl Thomas on your team. But you put a high value on that position, a big contract for Earl Thomas. How did you get to that point where you knew that was the right move?
Well, he's a guy that we've played against. I've always really, really admired him. And when I thought about Ravens-type defenders, in my mind, that's Earl Thomas. And when you think about his skill set, when you think about how he plays, when you think about what he brings to the table as a player but also a leader, that's Earl Thomas. He's a guy that makes plays in the box, down the field. He's a playmaker. He wins games with his ability to intercept passes. He's a leader. He's played on really, really good teams, which was intriguing for us. The fact that he's played in so many big football games, he was a natural fit. And so if we're going to lose a Terrell Suggs, if we're going to lose an Eric Weddle, if we're going to lose a C.J. Mosley, we lose a lot of leadership and a lot of skill. It made a lot of sense for us to bring Earl Thomas into the fold, to have him replace some of what we lost.
Hey, last one for you before I let you go. Trace McSorley drafted from Penn State, quarterback, and there's been a lot of talk about other positions. There's been comparisons to Julian Edelman. Is he a quarterback and only a quarterback with the Ravens, or could he play other positions?
That's a great question. I think he's a football player and everything that entails. I think his skill set is varied and multiple. We brought him in. We spent a day with him here in Baltimore several weeks ago. We worked him out as a quarterback. But this is a guy that he's fast, he's strong, he's tough, he's a playmaker. He's a football player. And we've seen teams, for instance, the New Orleans Saints with Taysom Hill. We've seen other teams find ways to play with players like this, and they can help you win football games. So he fits our defense. He fits our offense. He fits special teams. He's got a great mentality. He's a leader. He's highly competitive. He's played in a lot of big games, and we're excited to see what he can do.
Did you misspeak, or did you intend to say he fits our defense?
I think he fits everything. This guy's a football player. He throws the ball well. He runs the ball well. He's been a safety. He could probably return kicks. He could probably punt if we need him to punt. He's a talented kid. He's super smart. He's highly competitive. And we just want to find his niche. We're going to carve out a niche for him. He gives us a lot of possibilities. We played against the Saints this year. We got a chance to see what Taysom Hill could do firsthand. And when you got a guy like that who you can line up at quarterback, you can run with him, he can throw the football, he plays on the special teams as a personal protector, you can fake kicks with him. That's a weapon, and we're going to try to use our guy the same way.
Well, Eric, you found your niche 23 years ago. Here's to 23 more. Congratulations on all your success. We look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.